Welcome to Politicking. I'm Larry King. The midterms loom, the Russian probe, payoffs to porn stars, and legal problems for the president's personal attorney hang over the White House. But the economy's doing well, and more Americans are working now than have been in years before. It's good news and bad, and a whole lot of scandalous headlines about the personal behavior of Mr. Trump. And those close to him, longtime survivor of D.C. politics, Ron Paul, joins me. He'll give us a little perspective. The former GOP congressman from Texas, two-time candidate for the Republican presidential nomination. He was also the Libertarian Party's presidential nominee in 1988. He's the founder of the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity. He joins me from Lake Jackson, Texas, and I am in New York City. Ron, President Trump keeps calling the Mueller investigation a witch hunt. Would you describe it that way?
I don't know how I would describe it, but I don't consider it a very smooth operation. And as a libertarian, I can be pretty independent-minded rather than siding with, say, the Republicans against the Democrats. But for some reason, I think the aggressiveness to get Trump is probably a little extreme without knowing all the details of what went on. I think it looks like a little bit of sour grapes going on. And it gets so messy, I can't keep up with all the players. But one thing is, I'm not too excited about these special prosecutors. Watergate wasn't the best deal in the world for the country, and I think this one is out of control, and it looks like it's a real mixed bag on what's going to happen with it.
Do you think the president should sit down and be interviewed by Mueller?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, about everybody who had advised him said that he should not do it, and I would tend to agree with that. You know, Larry, I think it would be okay to sit down and talk with these guys if the prosecutors and the people who are pushing the case against you, if they were under oath. But they have the advantage of not being under oath. They can say anything they want and twist things. So I don't like the process at all. I often wondered why prosecutors don't have to be under oath, and they can just say things and twist them and get people into trouble. But they say the system is very, very difficult to remember every single thing you've ever said, and a prosecutor out to get you, it's very difficult. I don't think it's fair to the person who has not been charged with a crime and they're looking for a crime. There's a great disadvantage there. So I don't like the system way it is, but I certainly think it would be risky for him to get involved, mainly because of his history, because you can't, he probably doesn't know from the beginning to the end exactly what he's going to say.
After repeatedly saying that he'd oppose former CIA Chief Michael Pompeo as Secretary of State, your son, Senator Rand Paul, voted to confirm him. Were you surprised at that? Did you talk to him about it?
No, I don't talk to him about what he does. He has his reasons, and they're never easy. I've been there. And he certainly had a lot of criticism about him. He's still concerned. He's still concerned about who's going to run the CIA. But I personally haven't talked to him. But I think that, you know, that at least he called attention to some of the shortcomings. But it's pretty difficult to fight something where everybody's ganged up against you and you know you can't win the fight, so you have to play your cards the best you can. But I think he's done a good job in pointing out some of the problems and shortcomings. I don't think Pompeo is going to do a great service for our country. I think he's way too hawkish for libertarians. You know, he's looking for a fight, and he wasn't a very good protector of civil liberties. So he could never excite me to be, you know, a strong supporter of what he's doing, like so many conservatives are. Okay,
you mentioned the CIA. Gina Haspel is scheduled to appear before the Senate Intelligence Committee this week. Apparently there's a lot of controversy surrounding her. What do you think of that nomination?
Well, I think it's horrible, because I think she truly was involved, you know, with the torture. I think, matter of fact, I'm cynical enough to think that it's probably still going on. You know, although Obama tried to do less of it, and probably is, but I think they're more cautious. But torture has been around for a long time. I think it's despicable, and I think she was too close to it, and she too is similar to you know, Pompeo on the policy. It's aggressiveness, it's interventionism, warmongering. Civil liberties don't mean a whole lot. So I don't think the country's better off with somebody like Haspel in the CIA. Matter of fact, there are many of us who believe that the whole nature of the CIA, this whole idea of secret government, where they can get involved in the overthrow of governments, and a matter of fact, I believe assassinations in this country. Too much secret government, it contradicts everything a libertarian ought to believe.
What's your assessment, Ron, at this point, overall, of the Trump administration?
Well, of course, you mentioned now, because it has a while to go. I can't get too excited. I'm glad there's been some economic changes made. You know, I believe in lower taxes and less regulations, and he's been a cheerleader for the market, and we do see some improvement. I don't think things are as good as they claim, because you know, the labor participation rate has not improved, and half the people don't even get counted. So there's still a lot of problems, but there has been progress. But if you look at the size and scope of government, no improvement whatsoever. There's still a lot of spying going on, more than ever before, more money spent on militarism, not on national defense, and there's more money spent domestically. I mean, he could be a great Democrat, you know, if he's going to spend her, but that tends to be the case, that Republicans, you know, tend to like to spend it their way. I think it's always, when I was there, I always thought it was an argument over, do we get to write the checks, or are you going to write the checks? And we have our friends and you have your friends. Because look at the, I'm sure you remember the Reagan administration. He truly didn't turn out to be a fiscal conservative, and on the short run, it gave a boost to the economy. And I agree with that. You print a lot of money and borrow a lot of money and spend a lot of money, you can give a boost to the economy, but it's all on borrowed money, and you always have to pay for it. And I think that's what we're getting ready to do. We're starting to do it because there are a lot of weak spots out there, and one is the maintenance and the payment of the debt that we have. And so I'm not happy that so much of that direction has not been changed under Trump. He's going to continue to be a big spender, and I don't think he worries about deficits and debt as I do.
A couple of days ago, the National Taxpayers Union released a letter signed by a very diverse political group of more than 1,100 economists urging President Trump to reconsider his tariff policy. You're an expert in these kind of areas. Where do you stand? Well,
if the letter was as simple as you said and didn't have too much other in it, I probably would have signed it. It should be reassessed. Sometimes, fortunately, it's more bluster and talk, because he'll say, I'm going to do this, 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 and then when the program is imposed, it's not quite as bad. I keep hoping maybe that will be with the tariff. But tariffs are a reaction to the fact that goods are too cheap and people are getting such a good deal, they want to raise the prices. They do that by having protectionism, which is a tax. So I've never thought that it was a good idea to assume that the products we buy are too cheap, nor should we challenge the notion that we should have the right to buy where we want to buy. In a free society, that's what we should do. Not only is it a right for you to do it, but it also is an encouragement to the people who aren't doing a good job. What if you can get a better product from overseas at a better price, and then somebody comes in and say, oh no, we can't do that. We want you to pay more for something that isn't as good. So I think protectionism, very, very bad. And you know, 20, 30 years ago, I thought it was a long time ago settled on this, that, you know, that most economists said we shouldn't have these tariffs. But I think the fact that he's getting a lot of attention on this and making so-called progress on what he's talking about means that the economy, people are recognizing weaknesses in the economy, and when they're there, they sometimes resort to things just off the handle. Oh, we'll put on tariffs and we'll protect ourselves and that will solve our problems, and they won't look to the basic problem of how the economy is operating and how the monetary system works and how much debt we pay and what's going to happen when the market tells you the interest rates are going up. See, that is a big deal that they have to deal with, and interest rates have started up. So if you ignore the problem and say we need protectionism, which makes the problems worse, then obviously I believe we're going in the wrong direction.
Paul Ryan is leaving the House and the speakership. How do you assess his role as Speaker?
Mediocre at best, typical, routine. I knew him pretty well, and he always, would mention his libertarian leanings and background and this sort of thing. But I think it's typical, play the game, he get ahead. I don't think you can even become a chairman of any committee without playing the game. That's why an individual like myself, I could have stayed for longer periods of time. I mean, you're required to raise millions of dollars, like $30, $40 million to become a campaign chairman. You have to play the game. So if you become a chairman of a major committee or a Speaker of the House, you play the game, and you play the game not only with the insiders in Washington, but you play the game with the outsiders too in order to get the donations. And that means you play games with the deep state and the crony capitalists out there that always want to be taken care of. So I would put him in that category, although on a personal basis, it was always very friendly conversations, and on a social sense, we got along together. But I don't think he improved anything at all, and I don't see that on the horizon in the near future. Matter of fact, even changing parties, everybody concentrates now we have to get rid of these Republicans, get rid of Trump, and then we're doing well. That's what was said when we had Obama. They switch parties, they distract from the real problems, they distract from our presence around the world, distract from the runaway spending and the deficits and the problems with the Federal Reserve and the interest rates going up, the unfunded liabilities. They don't talk about that. Civil liberties, do they really care about privacy? All that yelling and screaming over the years. Last year we just heard in the news the monitoring surveillance of every American went up 300%, 500 million times, and that's all they're doing. And we moan and groan a little bit, but nobody really cares. There's not any difference between the two parties, and that to me is tragic.
Ron, Paul, as always, thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Larry. Nice to be with you.
Always great talking with you. Bill Cohen's coming up. We'll talk to the former Secretary of Defense about the president's Iran nuclear deal rhetoric and that controversial move to